After almost 800 guitar videos, what did I actually learn? That's what we're going to find out in today's video. So come join me and let me share what I've discovered. When I first started in the very beginning, I was not doing this in a serious kind of way. I was just posting videos of me noodling over some loops that I would do after a practice session in the morning. I would just loop something on my DL4, shout out in the comments if you love the DL4, and then I would just solo over the top of it and share it to my page so my friends could see. And it was really just me getting back into having fun on the guitar after having a couple of years where I was not so into it anymore. Then after some time, I kind of started to float the idea of creating something that was a little bit more defined and regular. And so then I had to figure out how I was going to do that. Tell me how! And my first port of call with that was the workflow, because I knew if I wanted to do this, I would have to do it in a way that would be manageable time-wise and that wouldn't get frustrating. Because if you haven't noticed, I am a person with a life and a job.
Really? Wow.
And my main goal was to create a way to make videos that was focused on being creative and spending as little time possible setting up, plugging stuff in, troubleshooting, and all of that stuff. I needed something that was very easy to use, something that was basically plug and play. And I kind of managed to create something that does that pretty well. I'll go into the specifics of my actual setup in another chapter.
Stick around.
The main way I try to achieve this plug and play kind of thing is by thinking about standardizing the process where the setup is the setup and I just come in, plug in the guitar, and I'm ready to go. So that means my physical setup, like the pedals and the amp and everything, is kind of unchanging most of the time, but also when I mix in Logic afterwards, it's super bare bones. And I do that on purpose as well, because there's a lot of overproduced guitar content on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. And I like imperfection. I like the uniqueness that little mistakes or little flukes give to the music. And so I really did not want to spend a lot of my life comping together a perfect take or removing little mistakes here and there. I just wanted it to be real and in the moment and honest.
Whatever, hippie.
I think there's maybe been 2 or 3 videos where I've done a little comp. Everything else has just been a matter of getting a take that I was happy with, and that's the take. And the nice thing of taking this kind of standardizing approach is that you can make a habit of using it. So the more you do it, the quicker you get with it because it becomes a routine that you go through. So that way I could really focus my creative energy on the music, and kind of the logistics of making the video happen after that was something I could do on autopilot by the end. A video would take about 45 to 60 minutes. That includes coming up with the idea, practicing it, recording it, mixing it, and editing the video. And I think that is pretty damn good. Generally, I would do about 6 videos on average per session, but I would spread that out. So I would spend one day recording everything, and then the next day I would mix and edit the videos. And that was working really well. That's really what allowed me to post every day and also come up with new musical ideas all the time, because I'm rarely playing covers or doing like meme content, because I just want to have fun. I just want to come up with stuff. I want to be excited about music.
This is so exciting.
I kind of set a limit on myself as well. So if I could notice that a video idea was taking longer than the time I really had to spend on it, I would usually just put it to the side and come back to it another time. That didn't happen that much, but there was a handful of times where I decided to do that, because ultimately I'm doing this in my free time and I only have so much of that. So I kind of had to be strict with myself and make those kind of decisions without getting too attached to stuff. So as I talked about before, I kind of used the idea of standardizing the setup to help me streamline everything. So the way I have it set up is that my guitar just goes into my pedal board, and the pedal board rarely changes. I have it set up in a way where I've crammed as much as I can onto there, and a tuner, because you kind of have to, annoyingly.
But why?
And I don't really change out pedals a lot. When I do, it's usually just one pedal because I'm after something very specific, but most of the stuff I generally need or want is covered by the pedals, the way I have it set up, which looks like this. And then from the pedals, it goes into my amp, which looks like this. And from the amp, I take the direct output, which has a speaker simulator built in. And from that, I go into Logic through my audio interface. Kind of in the physical world, that is the setup. I don't change my settings on the amp that much either, unless I'm using like a really distorted sound. But I kind of have a sound that I like, that feels good. I'm not like a huge tone snob in that sense. I love sounds, but I'm not very particular. I think you play with the sound, and the pedals are just an extension of your instrument. And if you don't like the way they sound, you're using them wrong. What? It's a very simple mix chain. Once I'm in Logic, I'm running a noise gate, which most of the time I don't use. I just put it on when there's very noisy sound and it distracts from the music. Then it runs into a compressor, an EQ, another compressor, another EQ, and all of them are set very subtly, so they don't really change the sound in a crazy way. They just are there so I can make a little bit of space in the mix for everything to have a place to exist. And besides that, I just pan things, and very occasionally I add some reverb in Logic, but usually the reverb is coming from the pedals.
That's terribly fascinating, man.
The footage and the audio and put it in iMovie. And why iMovie is very simple, because it's free.
Pretty sneaky, sis.
It helps keep the process streamlined because there's no temptation to go try a bunch of stuff with the video editing. You just edit it together, export it, and move on.
Oh, okay.
And besides that, I think the thing that's impacted the quality of the visual the most is the lights. At some point, I just got some cheap LED lights, and that really improved the visual quality of the videos. So that's something to really keep in mind if you want to do something similar, because it can really help your camera, especially if you're using an older phone camera, or if you have a phone camera that's not very good in low light. Having some lighting makes a huge difference to the image quality. Then later on, I got some colored LED lights in the back there, and I now also have a ring light, which means I'm officially a content creator.
Well, Lottie frickin' da!
And that's kind of it for the setup. And I think the most complicated my workflow gets really is when I incorporate some synths or something like that, because that means I need to integrate syncing or extra inputs or stuff like that. So that's one main reason why I haven't done that much with synths, even though I love them. It's just because it doesn't quite fit in the workflow at the moment. But maybe in the future that will change.
Don't even care.
And then once all of that is done, then I post it. And once I post it, I get comments. And in the comments, there are occasionally questions, which often have to do with... So over the course of those almost 800 videos, there's been quite a few people who have asked me, how do I keep coming up with new stuff all the time? And how do I not run out of steam? Not to break the fourth wall, but I did run out of steam occasionally. But I had methods to overcome the running out of steam and still keep going. So that's really part of the creative and the writing process. The biggest lesson I've learned in doing the videos is how to manage and find inspiration, especially once I started posting every single day, because then all of a sudden there's this kind of implied pressure that you have to keep the train going so you can keep posting every day, which means you have to keep coming up with enough ideas to sustain that.
Now that's a little too much.
Because I think a lot of us think of inspiration as something that comes to you out of nowhere, right? It kind of gets beamed to you through the ether, and then all of a sudden you feel inspired, and then inspiration leaves, and then everything just goes to shit. But what if I told you there is another way? Because you don't have to wait for inspiration. You can create an environment that invites it in. And that is not that hard to do.
Oh, thank God.
If it wasn't for musicians being extremely self-critical.
Well, come on!
So that's something that needs to be addressed if you want to feel inspired more consistently. And in the vein of the quote, thought is the enemy of flow, you need to start practicing non-judgment and acceptance when you come up with stuff. Because a lot of us tend to very quickly judge anything we come up with. And by doing that, you kind of undermine your whole process from step one. I highly recommend you try this out. Oftentimes we come up with stuff and we are so quick to judge it or to dismiss it or be like, oh no, I'm not feeling this, or this is not good enough. All kinds of things we tell ourselves that are utter bullshit.
Whatever.
So the real key is to learn to recognize that and then practice non-judgment and acceptance when you are writing. Think of it as learning to go with the flow of the music and creating kind of a two-way conversation between you and your creative process. So all of a sudden, when you think of it like that, you're going to start listening much more to what you're playing rather than thinking about it. And that is a really powerful way to approach making music. And I think it's the way you should be approaching music. You shouldn't be conceptualizing it. You shouldn't be thinking about it. You should be working with the music to make it come to life.
Cool.
Let me give you one example. Oftentimes I would have an idea or kind of the seed of an idea that could then grow somewhere. So that's going to be something that's kind of abstract, but it's defined enough to give me kind of a playground to play in creatively. So that can be something like, I want to make something with loads of reverb, or I want to do something with rhythmic delay, or I want to play something that is really slow. Or I want to play something that is based on really short notes. So it can be all these kind of abstract but slightly defined starting points. And then once I have that, I will just start playing something based on that. I come up with a little starting point of something. Maybe I'll fine tune it a tiny bit, but I will try to record it as quickly as possible, because as soon as I've recorded it, now it's kind of a set idea. And now I can listen to it and kind of ask myself, okay, what can I add to this to just make me like it more? I just start adding stuff with the intention to make it more interesting or exciting or fun for me, because I am my first audience member ultimately.
Really?
So I have to make that judgment. And that's the only judgment I end up making is, did what I add make me like it more or less? So I would start playing something either based on this little starting idea or just anything at all. And then instead of making a value judgment, I would just accept it as if someone else played it to me. And by doing that, you kind of cut out this like, is it good or bad? Do I like it? Do I not? It doesn't matter, because you're still creating it. So you don't know yet whether it's good or bad, or whether you like it or don't. What we musicians do quite a lot when we're writing is kind of the same as taking a brick in your hand and saying, this is a good house. You don't know. It's just a brick. You need to build the house first.
Wow, I'm so smart.
And in the same way, you need to build up your bigger idea first before you can start deciding whether the parts that make it up are all working or not. And the music is telling me through the filter of my own taste what needs to be added to it to make it fit my taste more. That's it. So I really recommend you think about this next time you're writing, because you'll find that it really transforms not just your writing process, but it also makes it much more enjoyable, because when you don't feel inspired, it doesn't feel like a personal failing. It just means that you haven't put yourself in the right space, and that can be changed quite easily. Now, there are some other ways I will generate ideas. One of the biggest ones, and this counts especially for riffs, I will use rhythmic ideas as a starting point. I love drums, I love percussion, I love rhythm, and so I will often be kind of beatboxing in my imagination and coming up with drum beats or drum fills. And oftentimes I will use those ideas and then transfer them to the guitar, where they become kind of the rhythmic template that I can then put notes to. That's a method that I really like, because it also means that I'm straight away thinking about the bigger picture as well, and like how, even though there is no bigger picture yet, but it kind of feels like it's more involved in a bigger landscape rather than just guitar on its own. And fun fact, oftentimes I come up with those beats and rhythmic ideas in the shower. So if you are struggling with your creativity, wash yourself.
Shut up, hippie! You stay! Go take a shower!
And the idea really with, I think, being creative and writing is to have multiple ways to approach something and multiple ways to invite in that inspiration that we need to create. So let me say a few words about my ethos and approach to the videos and the channel and everything.
That sounds pretentious.
Because it was never my goal to get loads of followers or views or likes or anything like that. The goal for me was always to do it because I'm enjoying it and because I want to share that with people. I'm very grateful for the people that have found me through social media and that have shared their excitement about the music that I'm doing. And I've met some really lovely people in that process. But the goal for me was never follower counts or anything like, metrics. And I think personally, if you are doing music for anything like that, whether it be wealth or fame or recognition, you're not going to have a good time. And you're probably not going to make a lot of enjoyable art in the process, because your heart won't be in it. Your heart will be, in fame and wealth.
Start up, cash in, sell out, bro down.
Just do what you believe in. Even if you're not quite sure what it is, follow what feels right to you. Trust that gut feeling. And that's really what the channel is about. It's about having fun with music and just following what excites you. And so as an extension of that, I have really tried to make it my thing to just do my thing, whatever that is. And my thing varies quite widely, which means that I'm just allowing myself to pursue whatever I feel interested in at any given moment. Just do your own thing, because that is really what attracts people to art and to music. When I think about all of the artists and musicians that I look up to, a huge part of why I like what they do is because they do something they believe in without caring about numbers. It's about the honesty and the authenticity of the music. And if that is there, then people are going to notice and they're going to resonate with it. So focus on that and honing what your authentic, honest, musical or artistic identity is. On that same note, don't be afraid to change, because it's good to be flexible, and your art and your music needs to be able to grow with you as you grow. This thing that you're making, if you're making similar stuff for a longer time, you're going to start identifying yourself with the stuff you're making. But that is just the stuff you're making. It's not you.
Far out.
So don't be afraid to change things up, because otherwise you're going to get stuck in a rut where you just kind of feel uninspired trying to do the thing that once made you feel inspired. Don't be afraid to let go of something that you have come to think really defines you. If you're unable to let go of things that aren't working for you anymore, then that is what's going to define you. So don't be afraid to try new things. And if you are afraid, do it anyway. There's not that much to lose. It's just sound. the end of the day. Finally, few words on social media. I think it's important to recognize that ultimately these platforms are primarily, if not exclusively, an advertising and public opinion shaping tool run by corporate and elite interests. That's what it is.
It's funny because it's true.
So I think as a creative person, as an artist, I don't think it's a good idea to attach too much of your self-worth to anything to do with these kind of platforms. Not in the least because they are literally wanting to steal your content to train their AI models. So I don't think it's a very welcoming space for artists.
Oh, that's a shame.
We just still think it is because it kind of used to be in the beginning. And even though it still kind of feels similar and looks similar to some extent, the goals of these platforms, I don't think are really in line with benefiting artists in any way whatsoever. If you have been on social media, especially music social media, you'll have seen what I have seen most likely, which is that these platforms really encourage creators, no matter how creative they actually are, to create copycat content and regurgitating memeable formats in hopes of jumping on some viral bandwagon, because that's how the platform validates its users, is by rewarding virality rather than originality. You get a lot of people copying a format that someone else has come up with, literal copy and pasting of ideas, or even, just reposting someone else and pretending it's your content, which personally I don't think is a sign of a very healthy creative environment. So as far as I'm concerned, social media as a creative space is just a bubble that encourages the regurgitation of the same ideas over and over and over again. I think personally the value of social media for creatives and artists is totally overstated and is mostly still thought of that way because we keep using it in that way, expecting it to give us something in return. And in that sense, I think as a creative platform, these social media giants are kind of useless.
Being so negative.
And that's it. Go to a gig. So those are some things that I've learned in the past 2 or so years of posting every day and making these videos. It's been a really interesting journey. I've learned a lot about myself, about making music, about recording, and I've met some incredible people. So if you're watching this, you are one of those people. Thank you for joining me on this adventure.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
There's a bunch of stuff that I talked about today, and I would love to hear your input and your thoughts about it in the comments below. So let's continue the conversation there. Please consider subscribing or liking the video, or both. It really helps the channel. And if you want more exclusive access to my content, you can join my Patreon. I have a free membership and a paid membership. So if you want to support me, you can do that there as well. Any support is greatly appreciated, really helps me to keep this going and to keep making music that I can share with you. In the meantime, thanks for watching. See ya.